All right, good morning, Hope. Okay, right over here. Good morning. Thank you. Good morning. Yeah. Awesome. Hey, my name is Doug. I did not introduce myself earlier. Sorry about that. I'm one of the pastors here at Hope. I just want to reiterate something Shelly mentioned earlier. The newcomer dessert, so if you are new to the church, that's happening tonight. So we've been announcing it for a few weeks, but if you didn't catch that or get signed up, be sure to sign up so we can email you, like make sure you do it today so we can email you because it's happening tonight. We'd love to have you. So, all right, well, I want to start out, we are doing a new series right here, and we'll get to that in a second. And I just started thinking about our phone, and we were having some conversations in our staff. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but there have been many mornings, not too many, but some mornings where I wake up, I reach for my phone, and I realize it is almost dead. Like maybe I forgot to plug in the charger at night, or it wasn't fully on the charger. Whatever it was, I'm running behind. I've got my meetings stacked up, and I'm looking at it going, great. My phone is on 8%, and we've not even left the bed, right? Anybody else ever is this just, okay, I'm not alone in this. That's kind of a low-level panic, and it doesn't happen to me too often because it only takes a few times of that happening before I get like really uptight and vigilant about keeping my phone charged. But still, when it does happen once in a while, I know what that day looks like. Maybe you know too. I spend the day scrambling, trying to plug it in every time I'm driving in the car somewhere and looking for places to plug in a charger during meetings. You know, you've ever been at the coffee shop and you're like, oh, there's a charger down there. Suddenly you find yourself on your hands and knees face to face with a mop bucket. It's really, really awkward, really strange. Just barely having enough charge to really just get through the day. And then I realized that's not just how I treat my phone sometimes. Sometimes that's how I treat my life. And I think sometimes that's the way a lot of us tend to live. Not just with our phones, but with our souls. That we plug in just long enough to get by, but we never fully restore. We're just getting by, just enough to survive. We scramble through our weeks. We're running on fumes, just trying to hold it together, get to the next thing. There's coffee in the morning and sugar in the afternoon and a scroll through Instagram and then that second or third shot of espresso just to keep going. I don't know about you, but at this point, my blood type is probably cold brew. So, but let's be honest, again, some of us have been running on fumes like that for so long that we barely notice anymore. Like survival has become the norm for us. But here's the deal, deep down inside of us, there's a quiet ache. We wonder, is this all there is? Is life just like stringing together enough half charges to make it through another day, another week? And we know when we're living that way, we're not thriving, we're coping. We're tired. And I mean, soul tired. But here's the thing. You were not created to live on 8%. And your soul wasn't made to run in survival mode. Now, what if I told you that God actually built a rhythm into creation? A rhythm of work and rest, not to restrict us, but to restore us. What if there's a better way to live than the way we tend to be living right now? And that's what this new 4-week series is going to be all about. It's about Sabbath. And today we'll begin with the first movement of 4 in Sabbath. And the word for today that we'll focus in on is stop. So I want to begin this whole new series on Sabbath with a simple question today. What if you just stopped? Not because your to-do list is done, not because you finished everything at home or at work. What if you stopped just because you trusted God enough to stop? Now, before we jump into this week's theme of stop, I want to set up the series a little bit because we've got a few things that I think are going to be helpful where we're heading over these 4 weeks as we explore this practice of Sabbath. We want to seek Sabbath as a gift But first, I think I want to remind us of, because this is kind of the overarching part, is that Sabbath is a practice. It's a practice. And here at Hope, and some people will call it a discipline, and that's fine too, but it can get really wonky when we call it a discipline. So some of us prefer the word practice. I'm going to go with practice. And around here at Hope, when we talk about spiritual practices, it is not about performance. It's not about who's more spiritual than who. That kind of pride has no place in the family of God. It has no place here at our church, because we're a community of grace, not performance. We know that we're not trying to earn anything. We're not trying to prove anything. So Sabbath here, it's a practice and it's an invitation. It's an invitation. It's not a demand. So we don't should on each other. We make invitations. We make invitations, and then you make decisions. There's no pressure. We do all of this out of a posture of love and grace because we're following Jesus together. So someone might ask, okay, so why are we spending 4 weeks on this? Well, because growing deeper in Jesus, what we often talk about here, we call it the big three: love God, love others, follow Jesus together. Growing deeper like that doesn't happen by accident. And so of all the spiritual practices that I know, Sabbath is one of the ones that forms us and transforms us most deeply over time. Practicing Sabbath will shape our souls toward rest, toward trust, toward joy, towards worship. And so Sabbath is really worth learning, and it's worth practicing. But if nothing else, I just want you to have the category in your heart about why it's helpful. Now, I also want to give credit where credit's due right up front here for these 4 weeks. There's a ministry, John Mark Comer's ministry, Practicing the Way, and they provide amazing resources to help churches like ours go deeper in spiritual practices like this one here. And so their materials helped shape this series. They gave notes to guide the sermons and ideas for that. They've also made this great Sabbath guide right here, the Sabbath practice guide, and this is a weekly tool that will help you reflect and practice after each sermon. So Monica Andrews and my wife Heidi and Addie works in the office. They worked on edits and shaping this packet here, so thank you to them. And then Addie printed a bunch of copies. They're on the back table back there. And so as you leave this morning, you grab one of these, and this will be for all 4 weeks. There's just very simple ways to kind of guide you through week by week. And if you're watching online and you're not able to get to the building, or if you're someone that would prefer a download or digital version, just email the office and we'll send you the PDF, and you can use that right there. What else we're doing, not just the guide and the sermons, our small groups. These 4 weeks, we are going to focus on each of these themes. So in our small groups, we're going to go deeper and actually talk through this and wonder about this and share our struggles or successes or failures or our wonderings about Sabbath. So that'll happen in our small groups. And then if you want to go even deeper than that, when the series here wraps up in 4 weeks, my wife Heidi is going to do a smaller class for folks Sunday morning that want to go even deeper into this and press in and explore more. So what I'm saying is, if you want to just dip your toe in on Sunday morning, or you want to kind of wade in waist deep with your guide or in our small groups, or dive in all the way deep, you can go as deep as you want in this practice. That's our heart, to help you grow, to help you move into that. Now, before we dive deeper into today's teaching and theme, each week in the series, what we're going to do is focus on one word, just one key word, one movement of Sabbath. And the 4 movements they paint this really simple but beautiful picture of what Sabbath is meant to be. 4 movements: stop, rest, delight, and worship. Stop, rest, delight, and worship. That's how Sabbath can really just kind of move through. And this week, our theme, the one that we're going to start with right here, it's honestly probably the hardest one. This week's theme is stop. It's stop. Now, the word Sabbath, which is Shabbat in Hebrew, that word literally, Sabbath means to stop, to stop. But it also carries those other ideas of rest and delight and worship, which is why we're taking the 4 weeks, just to one part at a time, sit in it, soak in it, learn about it, and let it soak into our own lives. So the question again I return to get back into today's teaching is this question: what would it look like if you really stopped? What would it look like if you really stopped? Not because your to-do list is done, not because you got everything finished, but just because you trust God enough to stop. Now, if you have your Bible with you, we're going to turn to the beginning. It'll be on the screen as well. Talk about where Sabbath comes from and where its origins are. And some people would jump to the Ten Commandments, but we're going to actually go to Genesis chapter 2. This is before the Ten Commandments were ever given. This is before the fall ever happened. In fact, why don't you read Genesis 2, verses 1 to 3 with me up on the screen. Let's read this out loud. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Now, notice right here, God right here, Sabbathed. Like, I've read this passage a million times, and it never even caught me until recently that what God is doing here is on the seventh day, he is Sabbathing. God Sabbathed. God Sabbathed. Next slide. Now, some of us hear the idea like Sabbath, we go, Sabbath, well, yeah, but I'm a type A high capacity person. Okay, God Sabbath, right? Yeah, that's great, Doug, for some people, but I'm more of a doer. I got a lot going on in my life right now. God Sabbath, right? But I got littles at home. I got kids. I'm starting a business. Together now. God Sabbath, right? God, the creator of all of it, Sabbath, he stopped. Just think about that. The creator of the universe, who doesn't ever get tired, who never runs out of power, God stopped. God Sabbathed. Now, if even God could stop, here's the question I have to ask myself. If even God could stop, what makes me think that I'm so indispensable? Maybe even deeper, what does it say about our own hearts and state of being that stopping feels so uncomfortable? Me too, by the way. Because God stopped, God Sabbathed, and in doing so, what God did right here in Genesis is God wove a rhythm into the fabric of all creation. 6 days of work, 1 day to stop. That's the rhythm. Work, stop. Work, stop. It's a weird time signature, but it works that way. The musicians will get that one, yeah. Now, think about how we measure time right now too. The sun and the moon, they determine our days and our months. So the rotation of the earth determines how long. Just goes around one time. It's a whole day. It's a what? It's just here. Around it turns. Not around me. That's a day. Okay, sorry. I need pictures for this one, I think, right? All right, now, here. Okay, so you're looking for this one. And a trip around the sun of the planet, that's a... Oh, there we go. Geniuses. All right. Sorry, I didn't explain that well. And then the moon orbits around planet Earth. About how long is that? About a month, right? About a month, approximately. So we know where we got the measurements for a day, a year, and a month. It's all from astronomy and the planets. But where did the measurement of a week, being 7 days, where did that measurement come from? Spoiler alert right here. That's good. Yes, thank you. That's good. Some people say, oh, well, it might have been the Babylonians, but don't try to argue that one with Jewish scholars. John Mark Comer and other biblical folks cite other evidence that there's actually probably nothing really in astronomy that defines this 7-day week. It's simply rooted in the pattern of God's life, as the poetry of Genesis 1 and 2 describe. See, the only reason we have a 7-day rhythm to a week is because God built it into creation. So it's not arbitrary, it's not outdated, it's actually woven into the universe, and when we try to live without it, something begins to fray inside of us. In fact, back during I think it was 1700s, the French Revolution tried to implement a 10-day work week. So 9 days of work, and one day off, and the result was catastrophic. Like, there was a steep rise in illness, productivity went down, suicide went up, because when we don't stick to that pattern, something begins to fray inside of us. And I love what philosopher H.H. Farmer says. He says, when you go against the grain of the universe, you get splinters. And I think about that, and I think, some of us, we're full of splinters. We're burned out, maybe starting to get a little bitter, impatient, anxious, foggy, numb, and we can't really figure out why. And friends, here's a really hard truth that I'm grappling with. We've forgotten how to stop. I'm not pointing fingers, me too. Like, I really struggle to stop. But it's a rhythm of 6 days to work and 1 day to stop, to rest on the Sabbath. That's the rhythm. That's the rhythm, and here's the deal. When we go against the rhythm that God wired our bodies to run on, we start to unravel. And it's not because God is mad. God is not judging us. God's not going to get you. No, it's simply our design. We need to stop, and we've forgotten how to stop. Now let's turn. So that was Genesis. Now let's turn to Exodus. Exodus chapter 20, God gives the 10 commandments, and right there, number, I think, is it 4 or 5 of the 10 commandments. And this commandment is so long, to fit it on one slide, I shortened it quite a bit. Here's the summary of this commandment. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. On it, you shall not do any work. For in 6 days, we just read this, 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, but he rested on the seventh day. Now, however you interpret Genesis and creation, I'm not here to argue with anybody on that, but the pattern established and the story being told, the overarching story, is 6 days God made the heavens and earth, but even God rested on the seventh day. So note right here, by the way, this is one of the 10 commandments. It's not a bonus command. It's not an optional upgrade for extra credit Christians. In fact, this was interesting. I learned this week that this, if we put all the words of that command on here, this by word count is the longest of the 10 commandments. It's the longest of the 10. In fact, 37% of the total words in all of the 10 commandments are spent explaining the Sabbath. Isn't that crazy, to think about? That's worth pondering on, right? A lot of time and energy is spent explaining this, and yet, as Bible scholar Walter Brueggemann points out, Sabbath is the only commandment that we actually brag about breaking, right? Nobody brags about, how many lies they told this week. Nobody's like, hey man, check this out. I really upped my game on stealing stuff this week. People don't brag about that, but when it comes to busyness, we wear that like a badge of honor in our culture. We brag about how many days in a row we've worked, how late we stayed at the office, how many emails we answered on our supposed day off, because in our culture, busyness feels like worth. It makes us feel important. It makes us feel needed. Busyness makes us feel valuable. But in God's economy, Sabbath is this invitation to remember, I am not what I do. I am who I belong to. I'm not what I do. I'm who I belong to. I'm who God says I am. See, Sabbath can actually help to humble us and reminds us. What it reminds me is it's not all up to me. It's not all up to me. The world doesn't depend on my hustle. The church doesn't depend on me holding everything together. No, I and you, we belong to a God who never slumbers or sleeps. We belong to a provider who loves us beyond our performance. That we belong to a heavenly Father who invites us to trust him with all the stuff that's unfinished. Now listen, if you decide to try this, if you take off, okay, I'm going to start small. I'm going to take 3 hours off this Saturday. I promise you, I promise you the sun will still rise. Gravity will still work. Nobody's going to revoke your adult card. Nobody's going to pull it. God will run the world without your help or mine. He will run the world. See, that's why one of the reasons, so Sabbath is how we practice trusting God. Not just with our eternal future, but with our current calendar. 6 days of work, 1 day to stop and rest. That's the rhythm of Sabbath. Now, we have a lot of really brilliant, smart Bible people in the room here. And we have lots of us that don't know Scripture much at all. But some, especially those of you who know your Scripture pretty well, you know that some people hear I mentioned the 10 Commandments as part of why Sabbath's important. And some people say, hey, well, we're not under law anymore because of Jesus. Now we are under grace. And that is true. That is true. We are under grace. And others have said things like, well, listen, in all the 10 Commandments that are mentioned, the Sabbath, some people would say the Sabbath is the only one not explicitly repeated in the New Testament. Like the New Testament still tells us not to lie or murder or commit sexual sin or worship idols or dishonor parents. Like all those are mentioned again somewhere in the New Testament. But Sabbath isn't reinforced in the same way. So maybe, people wonder, maybe it's not for Christians anymore. And I understand even how people get to that point of view. But respectfully, I would disagree with that. So first, yes, we are under grace, not the law, but that doesn't cancel Sabbath. In fact, it doesn't cancel Sabbath. It needs to change how we see Sabbath. Like as followers of Jesus, would we not want to see Sabbath the way that Jesus did? Like, okay, yes, it's not a law. Okay, great. How did Jesus see Sabbath? Listen, Sabbath isn't a law that we have to obey to keep God from getting mad at us. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. Sabbath is a gift from God to humankind. And so we want to see Sabbath as Jesus did, as a gift. As a gift. Jesus saw Sabbath as a gift. Now, somebody would go, okay, listen, Doug, where do you get that from? Well, if you just watch Jesus in the Gospels, in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, he is constantly, we're reading story after story of him getting chewed out by these uptight religious leaders because according to them, he was always, breaking the rules of Sabbath, which were man-made, by the way. They added onto the 10 Commandments all this other stuff to make it pretty, kind of crazy, made it very obligatory, very heavy. And Jesus was always breaking their kind of Sabbath rules, which I think is hilarious if you think about this. Like the Lord of the Sabbath is accused of not Sabbathing properly. All right, but Jesus would heal somebody. For example, he'd go heal somebody on the Sabbath. So he's bringing actual life to somebody, and the religious leaders would say, whoa, you can't heal right now. It's the wrong day. And if you ever want to see somebody pick a holy fight on purpose, just go read the Bible, read the Gospels, and watch Jesus heal somebody in a synagogue on a Sabbath. And he does that because he's making sure that nobody misses his point about God's love for people and about the true way to treat Sabbath. So with the Sabbath, what had happened is it just gotten piled up with all these rules throughout what we would call the Old Testament. And so after all these layers, by the time Jesus shows up on planet Earth, Sabbath had gotten twisted. It got buried under all these human obligations and rules like don't walk too far, don't lift too much, don't help anyone unless it's life or death emergency. And Jesus shows up and is like, all right, you guys have lost the point. He had no patience for any of it. And Mark 2:27, he cuts through all that noise around the Sabbath, all that confusion. Here's what Jesus says. The Sabbath was made for people, not people for the Sabbath. By the way, it sounds to me like the Sabbath is taught in the New Testament after all. But the Sabbath was made for people, not people for the Sabbath. In other words, Jesus is saying, this is not a rule that you have to keep in order to prove your devotion to God. No. The Sabbath was made for people. Sabbath is a gift from God, and it's a gift that's there to restore you, to restore people. And the people back then, they'd gotten it completely backwards. They made the day of Sabbath way more important than people. And so Jesus right here just turns it right side up again, says people are not made to serve the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made to serve people. But I think about that, and honestly, Today, most of us don't have the problem they had back then. Like, we're not overdoing Sabbath, most of us, right? We're not overdoing Sabbath and trying really hard to keep it. We've forgotten it altogether. We don't load it down with extra rules. We often just most of us just blow right past it. Again, the Sabbath was made for people, not to be ignored, not to be treated like an optional extra. It was created for us as a gift from a God who loves us. And I'll just be honest, like, many of us don't stop, we don't rest. And it doesn't take too much to notice through different social studies and science studies and sociology studies that we are paying for it in our culture, in our health, in our relationships, in our spiritual growth. We're paying for it because we just keep going. And one more thing, don't miss this. Jesus practiced Sabbath. And he didn't do it out of legalistic obligation. He didn't do it because he had to check a box. He did it because he knows what we forget, that Sabbath is a gift. Sabbath is a gift. And I just start to think that if the Son of God made space for Sabbath, that maybe we need it even more than he did. And remember, Jesus didn't invite us just to follow his teachings. He invited us to follow his way. And his way, if we look at his life, his way included Sabbath. So, Sabbath is a gift. It's intended to help restore us, recharge us. And I know even when I'm saying this, because it happens in me, when I talk about this, some of us, it's just setting off these inner panic alarms, like, it feels like pressure, right? Or I'm suggesting in this, and you're like, my life is so full I can't add Sabbath to it. And that's part of the point, actually, is we have to take some things out so that we have space for Sabbath. But I totally get this, and I'll tell more of this story in the next week or two in this series. But like when I first had to figure this piece out, it set off panic alarms in me, like, what are you talking about? I can't do this, right? So if that's any of where you're at, if this sets off any like in you, or if you're starting to take this on because you come from a church background where this is like just legalism, and hear these words, let me read these words of Jesus. This is the fruit. This is the gift of following Jesus in all ways. Here's his invitation to us in Matthew 11. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, and you will find rest for your souls. I don't know what word stood out to you, but the one that really stood out to me is rest for your soul. Not just our body, not just our body, not just a nap or a day off. Jesus here, walking in his way, Jesus offers us a soul deep rest. This is really an invitation to stop living on that 8%. Now, I know in our culture this is hard because we don't know how to stop, and I know some of us are afraid to stop because we know when we stop, we start to feel. We notice the sadness, the anxiety, maybe the grief that we've been pushing down or running from, and so some of us, we just stay busy so we can avoid our pain. So really, and I get it, but Sabbath is this invitation to stop running, to stop running from our pain and running from the things that are trying to get our attention and surface. Sabbath is this invitation to stop running and then to trust that right here, even in our stillness, God is at work on our behalf. God is actually our provider. God is with us. So I'm going to I want to be really clear here. Practicing Sabbath is not about doing this perfectly. There's all kinds of suggestions and things in here. Do not take any of the suggestions here or elsewhere as, it's got to be done this way or it doesn't count. No. That is not helpful. That is not the heart of Jesus. And practicing Sabbath or any other spiritual practice, it's not about doing something perfectly. It's about making movement in a new direction. Just in a new direction. My bro in Minnesota, Pastor Dave Bricky, I love this phrase. He uses this phrase he says, it's about direction, not perfection. Pretty simple, pretty profound. It's about direction, not perfection. He's reminding us that this is about moving in a direction. It's not about achieving perfection. It's about moving in the direction. That's the invitation for our church, to move in the direction of Sabbath. And our goal is not, to do a perfect Sabbath practice. We're not trying to impress God with how holy our Sabbath looks or how strictly we follow all the best practices for a perfect Sabbath. No. We're saying, God, I want to walk with you in this rhythm. I want to live differently. I want to trust you enough for me to stop and say, God, you are God. I am not. You are God. I am not. And let me just be super real with y'all. I don't get this right all the time. In fact, I didn't even start practicing a intentional Sabbath until 2017, which was the same year I started pastoring here at Hope, which is kind of awkward that the guy here that's preaching about Sabbath is the guy who used to brag about how much he could get done on his day off. So there, that's me. But these days, I try to take Friday as my Sabbath. Sometimes it shifts to Saturday because it's about direction, not perfection. And a lot of you know that our office here is closed on Fridays, and it's very hard to reach me on a Friday or a Saturday, and that's intentional. It's intentional, and it's not always easy, because there are Fridays and sometimes Saturdays where I feel bad about it. Like I hear this little voice kind of whispering, it starts shooting on me, Doug, you should be more available. You should check your email. You should respond to that text, even though it's my Sabbath. But that becomes another place where God reminds me, he is God, I am not. He's God, I am not. And unless somebody is dying, seriously ill, or there's an emergency nobody else can handle, I can't be available. Not because I don't care, but because I can't be God for anybody else, and neither can you. So that phrase, direction, not perfection, it's such a gift to me, because there are weeks when my Sabbath is messy, where the day doesn't go as planned. There are moments where I am not very good at stopping. And guess what? In those moments, God is not disappointed in me. He's still delighted in me. He's still delighted in you. He still offers this gift. Like Sabbath isn't a test that we pass or fail. It's an invitation that we can always step into and begin again. Because Sabbath is not about guilt. It's about remembering you are not what you produce. You are not what you produce. You are the beloved. God loves you as you are. So here's our invitation in two parts for this week as we enter into this Sabbath practice. The first one, pretty simple. First of two, just try it. Just try it. Take a step in the direction, not perfection, in the direction of Sabbath. You're not going to nail this in 1 week or 1 month. Like the goal, again, it's not legalistic rule following. The goal is learning to live in a healthy rhythm with God and the people around you. So especially if this is new to you to even try, listen, you don't have to map out a 24-hour spiritual retreat with candles and poetry readings and psalm chanting. You don't have to do any of that. So just start small. Do it. Start small. Just rest even for a few hours, like a 3 or 4 hour block of time this week, maybe a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. Just stop, turn off your phone. If you're somebody that works a different kind of schedule, do it on a different day. The day doesn't matter, okay? Stop, maybe turn off your phone. Don't do chores. Don't pay the bills. Don't check your inbox. Don't clean the garage. Don't use it to catch up. I'm listing all the things that I often do. Don't do that. Use this time to stop. And when you try this, I just have a warning for you. When you try this, if you put your phone away for 3 hours, It will feel like you've moved to a remote island. Like you're going to be tempted, like, I just got to check it just in case, like, what if the Pope calls, right? What if, he's have to be the new Pope, but yeah, I mean, what if NASA has an emergency, right? I know this is shocking to you, but NASA has not yet called me, and if they do, they don't want me piloting anything. So, but just stop, be present, rest, take a walk, take a nap, read something beautiful, laugh with somebody you love, let yourself breathe, let it be messy, let it be incomplete, let it be, for some of you, just let it be exactly what it is, your first attempt at stopping. Just let it be a direction. And again, there's plenty of suggestions in the handout for different things that you can try. And like our staff, so here we go. One, just try it, see what difference it makes. And then part two, so try it, and then two, reflect. So our staff, we watched this video this week from the Practicing the Way group. And one of the teachers said, you don't just grow from experience, you grow by reflecting on your experience. You don't just grow from experience, you actually grow from reflecting on your experience. And that's why we're doing this together as a church. Small groups and also with the Sabbath guide here. This is why we're doing it, by reflecting. This is space for you to reflect about what happened, what you noticed, what felt awkward, what actually felt surprising or life-giving. So part one, try it. Part two, reflect so you can grow. And listen, if you go, I'm not doing it, don't skip your small group. Just go anyways, right? Go anyways. Here at Hope, we don't shame people or make them feel small. We don't sit around and try to fix you or give a bunch of advice. We're all on this imperfect journey where we follow Jesus together. So, by the way, if you're in a small group that's trying to fix you and pressure you, then that's not how we do it. Go talk to Brian and Shelley, our interim small group pastors. They'll come to your group and straighten them out. It'll be good, yeah. Only a small chuckle. All right, I hope, yeah, okay. I better keep going. All right, as a worship team, as you come, I want to remind us again, Sabbath, it's not just a break from your work. It is that, but it's not just that. Sabbath is about the courage to stop. Our big word this week, to stop. To stop and remember who you are and remember who you are not. You are not your email inbox. You are not your calendar. You are not your productivity. You are not what other people think of you. You are not your bank account. You are the beloved of God. And when you stop and when you rest, when you let the world keep spinning without your help, sometimes you begin to hear or sense the truth from God again and remember that you are loved just as you are. You are loved. You are held. You are safe. You can stop. You can stop. So back to the question I started with. What if you didn't have to live your life on low battery mode? What if you just stopped? What if you just stopped? What if you trusted God enough to stop? Don't have to be perfect, not impressive. You just have to be willing. So the invitation is simple. It's sacred. It begins with that one word, stop. Stop. Remember who you are and whose you are. I'm going to pray, and then we're going to sing a song, and I'll come back up and bless us as we close. But if you want prayer for any reason, our prayer team, will you come, prayer team, right now up here by the cross? And if you want prayer, go ahead and stand on up. And as we go ahead, and everybody go ahead and stand. Yeah, go ahead and stand. Prayer team, come on up here by the cross. And if you want prayer for anything at all, as we begin to sing, just come on up. Prayer team would be happy to pray for you. Again, I'll pray and then we'll sing. So, Father, Jesus, Holy Spirit, thank you. Thank you that we are daughters and sons of a good Father, a kind, strong, and engaged Father, a Father wise enough to guide us, generous enough to provide for us, offering to walk with us every step. Thank you that you are God and we are not. Will you help us trust you enough to stop? And as we stop, will you restore and renew us this week? We turn our hearts to you now.
I've carried a burden for too long on my own.